Greetings everyone! Today we're going to explore point-slope form. We do have a small note sheet. If you do not have access to it, you'll definitely want some graph paper at least. Alright, let's take a look. This is not on your note sheet. This is just intended to be a review. With what you know right now, if I asked you to graph this line, you would probably isolate y, and you'd start by distributing. You'd kick that -2 over. And then you would have an equation that you can graph because you would know the y-intercept's 0 and you could go down 1, right 1. Now, that is always an okay option, but what if this -1 in the beginning, what if that was some type of crazy fraction? When you distribute a fraction, you might not get a nice clean y-intercept. And so today's purpose is to have another way to graph when given an irrational slope. What can we do about it? So let's take a look. In our note sheet, here's what we're going to identify. We're going to start off with, this is the form that's called point-slope form. Now, as always, your slope is the m. Your slope is the number in front of x. That's always going to be true. But now what we're changing today is, instead of starting at the y-intercept, we're going to start at some point that's on the line. And we're going to decide that point by what's being subtracted from x and what's being subtracted from y. So be careful with the signs. This is going to be the trickiest part here. If, for example, this would say x minus 2, we're going to write positive 2 as our point. And similarly, if it says y plus 5, we're going to write minus 5. So we're going to have to work on using the opposite signs when determining our point. So let's practice this. This is why we're here and why we're watching this video. To start off with, our slope is the number in front of x. Right? And as you know already from previous videos and lessons, we can separate that into rise and run if need be. What's new today is determining our starting point. So x always comes first. Well, let's see. Right now it says x plus 2, so we write minus 2. We have to use the opposite. If it says, let's determine our y value. If it says y plus 4, we're going to use the opposite and say minus 4. So now let's graph this. Here's the biggest difference. Instead of starting on the y-axis, we're going to start wherever the point says to start. It says to start at -2, -4, left 2, down 4. That's our starting point. I like to label it SP. From that dot, now we can count our rise and run. Down 3, right 1, down 3, right 1. Same is still true. Morphet has that rule, 5 or fill. 5 dots, connect them, arrows. I still want to see all of that. So the piece that's new is remembering to use the opposite signs to find your x and y coordinate value. Let's try another one. Here I see that the number in front of x, my slope is -2. If needed, that means my rise is -2, my run is 1. But let's concentrate on the point. My xy value. If it says x subtract 2, then we write positive 2. If it says y plus 3, we're going to write minus 3. All right, so let's plot that dot right away. Right 2, down 3. That's my starting point. That's where I begin my graph. Then I'm going to count my slope. Down 2, right 1, down 2, right 1, down 2, right 1. I need to go the other direction to get my 5. Connect and arrows. Let's take a look at this one. We have a slope. The number in front of x is 3. So again, we've got a nice easy rise run, but let's worry about our starting point. If it says x plus 3, we write minus 3. If it says y minus 1, we write plus 1. And again, you don't have to write the plus sign. We just have to acknowledge that it is positive. So let's plot that dot, my starting point, negative 3, positive 1. There's my starting point. From there, from that dot, we're going to rise 3, run 1, rise 3, run 1, rise 3, run 1. Let's go the other direction, down 3, left 1. Connect and arrows. Now, these examples were all easy slopes, all right? Again, the reason why we have this is if the slope was more challenging, distributing would just become a mess, right? And we're trying to avoid that. Plus, we didn't have to do any extra work here, you guys. We didn't have to distribute and isolate y, which makes it faster and easier. Let's add a few extra examples in our notes. So please pause the video, jot down the equation, and then we're going to replay and visit. So let's start off with the slope. The number in front of x is my slope. Still true. Let's talk about our point. If it says x plus 3, then our x value is negative 3. My y value, though, there's nothing being added or subtracted. So what number could I add or subtract that wouldn't change it? I could make it a 0. So my point is negative 3, 0. So if you're missing a value, think, what can I add or subtract? A 0. Again, please add this to your notebook, so pause, jot it down, and then replay. My slope is the number in front of x. Perfect, 1/3. My starting point. Let's take a look at my x value first. What's being added or subtracted? Nothing. Nothing's being added or subtracted. So if I don't have anything being added or subtracted, we can fill in a 0. Let's take a look at my y value. My y value says plus 5, so we write down negative 5. Let's jot one more in our notebook. This time, if I take a look at the number in front of x for my slope, there isn't one. So what can I multiply by that won't change anything? A 1. You've seen this before, it just looks a little different when there's all this other information. So it is still a 1 for my slope. As for my starting point, it says x minus 2, so we write plus 2. It says y minus 7, so we write positive 7. So if there's an unknown addition or subtraction, it's 0. If there's an unknown multiplication, it's 1. Let's zoom through here, just extra examples. You do not need to jot this down, just follow along. My starting point on this one would be 2, 5. Should be that fast. Another one. Oh, this looks different. Normally, I'm going to add that 8 to the other side so it looks like all the rest. So if you need to rearrange, you can. And that makes my starting point then negative 3, negative 8. Starting point, it says x plus 1. We write negative 1. There's nothing being added or subtracted to the y. It says x plus 1, so we write negative 1. It says y minus 1, so we write positive 1. So be careful with those signs, especially when the numbers are the same. All right, as always, make sure that you check out Google Classroom, see what the task is to finish today. Let me know if you have any questions. Visit the Sabre Center if needed. Do you need that extra support this week? And until next time, have a good one.